Hello, and welcome back to the Friday Vinyl Club, where every day feels like a Friday and every album tells a story. I'm Jamie, and each episode I invite a guest to bring along one special record, an album that didn't just play in their life, but helped shape it. This isn't about chart positions or critical reviews. It's about personal soundtracks, the records that stay with us long after the needle lifts. This episode, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Max Clilverd. Max is an Ivor Novello nominated songwriter and multi-instrumentalist who has worked with an incredible array of artists. He's perhaps best known as a longtime collaborator and core band member with Tom Odell. He's a player whose work lives quietly but deeply inside the records so many of us love, and he's highly valued throughout the industry for his atmospheric pedal steel work and a masterful creative restraint that elevates every song he touches. In fact, Max's playing has been part of our own musical landscape ever since Ollie and I first discovered Tom Odell's music. And for this episode, Max has chosen a record that needs absolutely no introduction. It's a masterclass in studio production and a massive album for so many music fans. It is the Beatles' iconic and timeless Abbey Road. But before we dive into the album and why this matters to Max, let's rewind a little. Max, welcome to Friday Vinyl Club. How are you feeling today?
Feeling all good. Pleased to be talking to you. And thanks for having me along, Jamie.
Oh, thanks for joining us. But before we start, Max, I just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you. And I mean that from Ollie, myself, and the wider Tom Odell community. For me and Ollie, you've been there since the very start. And for a lot of us, your playing is in the actual fabric of the sound that we fell in love with. And I think sometimes people don't realize how much of the feeling of that music comes from the people standing just outside the spotlight. So you've played a huge part in our lives for years, and it's a real privilege to have you here and get the chance to hear your story today.
That's very sweet of you. And yeah, thanks for having me. It's, I guess we've been playing as a band for a long time. So sometimes you forget that it's quite a big sound up there and people are moved by it. But that's very kind of you to say.
Yeah, and on a personal note, for the Wrong Crowd album launch in Islington, that gig has gone down in our family folklore. I dragged Ollie out of school and drove down to London and back in a day, and you kindly signed his Tom Odell Wrong Crowd photo book after the gig for him, which really made his day.
So nice. Was that which venue? Was that the Assembly Hall?
That's the Islington Assembly Halls, yeah.
I love that venue, yeah.
Yeah, that's Ollie's Ferris Bueller's Day Off memory. If
Wow,
if he ever gets asked about his school days, that's the one that he normally pulls out first.
Nice. So how old's Ollie now then?
Oh, he's 24 now, Max.
Right, cool.
He's flown the nest. Yes.
What, he would have been? How long ago was that? That was.
He would have been about 13 at the time.
Wow, 11 years. It's an education, isn't it?
It's a better education than what he would have been doing at that time in class, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Max, I always love to start at the beginning for this podcast and get into your early musical memories. So what did music actually sound like in your house growing up?
Well, I mean, I guess I thought about that a lot when you asked me to pick an album. Obviously, it's really difficult to pin it down, but I did think about being a kid and those formative years of not knowing really what I was listening to until I asked, because there was always music on. So my dad was a massive influence to what I still listen to and the musician I am. So I guess it was the Beatles, lots of bands like The Who, The Kinks, Little Feat, lots of music with lots of feeling in it. And I guess my tastes haven't really changed since then. I think that's when you develop the sound, isn't it? And although I might venture far and wide with what I listen to, it does always come back to a handful of albums, I'd say.
Certainly, we have core influences, as you say. Was your mum into music at all, or was it really driven by your dad?
No, my mum's definitely, and she still is like an avid listener, and she loves music. She's always got the tunes on at her house and in the shop she works in. She loves David Bowie. That's her number one. She's obsessed with that. And Stevie Wonder, and she's got great taste, my mum. They both did, you know, so it was just like there was never bad music on. There was never things that I struggled to think, "What the hell is this?" You know, there was never bad 80s pop, or, you know, there was a lot of, like, 90s, like, early 90s records, like Seal was always being played, and, like,
Mm.
I love that first Seal record. Like that, you know, and George Michael, Listen Without Prejudice, that was on a lot. You know, so there's always either this, like, sort of the British rock bands, I guess, guitar bands, and then there was always this underlying soul thing going on, which, you know, I was gonna pick a Stevie Wonder record, but, I decided to go down the Beatles route. But yeah, Stevie Wonder was on a lot, you know, and both mum and dad loved that. So yeah, I was lucky in that sense.
Yeah, you
Uh,
certainly seem to have a classic, I would say, musical landscape going on. There
well
doesn't seem to be anything weird and wonderful there.
well, I mean, I do like hark back. I'm a bit of an old soul. We're in this weird space where you can listen to anything you want from any time ever, really. And like, I think what's amazing is sometimes when you go back and you've missed. I mean, the '60s is just like, you know, and that's sort of those sort of folky artists that I had no clue about, and that you can go and discover, and they've got huge back catalogues. You know, but I didn't
Mm.
actually get to like listen to Nick Drake till I was much older, like mid-20s, you know, and all the music he's recorded, and I guess John Martin I listened to when I was about 18, and then that's a treasure trove as well, you know. In fact, John Martin became a real massive influence and a bit of a hero, but, like, it's just amazing, and I think sometimes music is as progressive going back, do you know what I mean? Like, there's chances are things have been done and sound even wackier back then
Yeah.
than, you know, but, I mean, it's amazing really, the sort of it's quite overwhelming, isn't it, I think, the amount of music that's there and available.
It is, and I think as we were growing up, access to music was very different back then. So it's like nowadays, it's all at the touch of a fingertip. And even albums are created today, I don't think they get fully listened to or fully
No.
appreciated because the culture has changed from intentional listening to sitting down to a vinyl or a tape,
Yeah,
and then moved into, you know, swipe. So people hear different things. But as you say, it does provide them with the ability to have a time machine in their hands and go to any era and any sound, which I think is a
yeah,
good thing in general.
yeah, it is. It's just like, as long as you could do it, um, with a mindfulness, you know. I don't know, I find it quite overwhelming sometimes, the amount of music that's out there, and I feel like, especially when you're making new music with people, it's like you're just sort of adding another song into the ocean, you know, and like I think as long as you make it with the right intention of it just standing on its own and being brilliant for what it is and having a feeling behind it. You know, when the Beatles were making music, I think they were just treating each song with the respect that it deserved. You know, they weren't thinking about, "Oh, well, there's a ton of music out already," you know. Obviously, there hadn't been as much written, but it's just the amount of music can be mind-boggling. But,
Yeah.
you know, there's a demand there, and there'll continue to be.
Mm. So as you were growing up with that landscape of the Beatles and the Kinks and Bowie, was there a time where you latched onto a piece of music or a band or an artist that you felt was your own rather than your parents? Did you start to branch into any sort of genre of music yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I started picking the guitar up, it was more guitar records. I remember hearing Texas Flood by Stevie Ray Vaughan, who's a amazing Texas guitar player that influenced so many players. And I remember hearing a lot of Clapton records and sort of discovering that on my own because I was more interested in the guitar playing, you know, and then that's really influenced my sound as a instrumentalist. BB King, Freddie King, Albert King, like those kind of players. There was about 8 years of me just being a guitar player and listening to just guitar records, and I just wanted to hear blues licks and then copy them, you know?
Yeah.
And the song, I guess the song in the traditional sense sort of fell by the wayside because as long as it was a 12-bar blues and whoever was playing it with some feeling, I was all ears, you know? And that was just me becoming a guitar player, I guess. And that's taken a bit of a back seat, you know? I mean, I still love it, and I've got a gig on Friday with my mates, and we'll go play that stuff in a bar, and it's about as much fun as you can have, you know? And I
Mm.
love it, but I think the song's more important these days, but yeah, I mean, I went to study music, and I was listening to some terrible like fusion and stuff, and it was just like I listen to it now, it's inaudible. I can't do it. It's so cheesy, but for some reason I was really into it, because I think it was the musicianship. But your tastes change, don't they? It's like your palate develops, doesn't it, as you get older? It's the same with music. It's like, no, it's things that are tasteful, and when people aren't showing off is probably more valuable than when people are, you know?
No, I think you make a good point there. And, my tastes are still evolving now. And what am I, 52? You mentioned fusion there. I've just recently been introduced to Jeff Beck's Wired through this
Oh, wow, there
podcast.
you go.
So our
Brilliant.
last episode was with Delamitri drummer Jim McDermott, and
Right.
he talked me through that stunning album that I'd never heard ever. So
Cool.
yeah, I think we do. But going back to guitar playing then, how old were you when you first picked up a guitar? Was that at school or?
It was at primary school. I picked up a nylon string because my brother was having lessons, my older brother, so there was one lying around the house and he quickly stopped. Maybe because I picked it up, I don't know, but it's funny, like, I can remember being sat in the living room, sort of I think dad taught me how to play D, and then I'd sort of play that chord for weeks on end, and then I sort of ended up just discovering it and fiddling around on it really, and then I started having lessons at school, which I didn't like because it was involved playing one string at a time and, nursery rhyme stuff, and I was just not at no point did I wanna play that way. But it didn't stop me playing, I carried it on, I just sort of found my own voice with it. I did a lot of, copying people, and I met one bloke who lives, down in Trowbridge near where I grew up, uh, called Paul Hartshorn, who was about as much an influence on me as a musician as anyone has been. He was sort of my hero growing up, and I started having lessons with him when I was about I think when I was 12, but at no point did it seem like a lesson. We just listened to records, stop them, and then we'd learn the guitar breaks on it, and he'd show me and he'd give me CDs and CDs. Mum would drive me to these lessons, sit outside, and I'd come out with piles of CDs, and then we'd have to do the 40-minute drive home, and she'd have to listen to Robin Ford or Stevie Ray Vaughan or BB King or Jeff Beck and that went on for like years. I was still having lessons maybe when I was 15, 16 with him. And like that was the sort of my education, on the instrument. But it's funny, I can't really pinpoint like starting it, and then,
Yeah,
making progression. It's sort of grown with me, my guitar. It's just been there the whole time. And
brilliant.
yeah, it's weird. It's like a sort of another limb in a way, without sounding cheesy, but it's like it's a thing that I do when I'm happy. It's a thing that I do when I'm sad or when I'm bored, or I'll go and just mindlessly play my guitar, and it's great. Have a release like that, or
Mm,
something you can do like that.
yeah. You mentioned your brother there. From a family environment, was he influencing anything you were listening to? And did you have vinyl in the house? Did you have vinyl records when you were growing up?
We had a lot of CDs, more CDs than it was that sort of era. There was vinyl like in the loft, but we didn't listen to records as much. It was all tons and tons of CDs. And my brother Fraser, he likes a lot of like what does he like? He did like heavy metal. I remember being young and he'd have sort of Korn on and that kind of thing, Slipknot, but he quickly grew out of that and he loves sort of grime now. But he's got great taste for it. It's just very eclectic, and I think sometimes he's not sure what he likes until he's heard it. But I think all three, because I've got a twin brother, Jamie, and he's got good taste. I think there's definitely a musical thing that we've all got. It's not like one of us isn't musical.
Okay.
We're all into it, and everyone has a beer and everyone listens to the records they like, and someone will text, "Oh, I've got this album on," and that still happens now, like much the same as most families, I guess.
Yeah. Sadly, from my perspective, I had two older brothers and they kept their music not secret. I could hear it through bedroom walls, but it was never
Right.
a secret shared. Do you know what I mean? We were all individual
Was
as
it
we
good
were growing up.
was it good music, the secret music, or was it
My oldest brother was into Bowie,
Oh,
and
cool.
my second oldest brother was into things like Soft Cell, Mark Almond. So
Yeah,
uh,
right.
between them, they had a relatively good mix, and I used to sneak into their rooms when they weren't there and just try and listen to some of their 45s or their albums, but
Oh, cool, yeah.
trying
Well,
not to try not to get caught.
yeah, but I guess those were the times, right? It's like I was thinking about this before. I'm of a generation, and I think, I don't know whether it's just me, but a lot of my friends and other musicians do a lot of like we were saying earlier, do a lot of looking back at music. I think, is there less? I don't know. Maybe it's because I was a guitar player, but like I feel like sometimes I've sort of missed growing up with the bands that are my age, and then you get older with them. There was
Mm.
like, I guess there's like the Arctic Monkeys was one. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like most of my music's been looking back, not so much anymore, but growing up, I was, all these musicians and bands were like 30 years older than me, or more.
I totally understand what you mean, and I think that's the journey for a lot of people, really, unless you are in a moment. So, like, Britpop, for example,
Yeah,
and you knew that Pulp were up and coming, or you knew Oasis were up and coming, and you were actually there at the inception, and then you grew up with them. I think a lot of
yeah,
people are looking at music in retrospect, or they're looking
yeah.
at new music coming out, but some of it's very nostalgic. So it's like Paul McCartney's just dropped a new album, hasn't he?
Well, speaking about that, my mum I got a vinyl through the post yesterday. I said to my mum I like Paul's new album, and she sent me it, and I've
Oh,
just heard it
bless.
this morning, and it is good. It's the best one he's done in ages, I think.
I've not heard it yet. I've heard the lead single that's been played on the radio, but I've not actually got the vinyl on order yet.
It's kind of great. Like, he's still doing it. He's still got so much enthusiasm for it, and on all the interviews, he's got a real light behind the eyes. Like, he still loves it. It's incredible.
I
I
know.
went I went to the O2 couple of, when was that, last year or the year before, and watched that. Sort of blew my mind, that gig. A lot of people were sort of saying about his voice and stuff, but I mean, what do you expect? But it was incredible, that gig. Just mind blowing. Just from 3 hours of hits.
Well, you've already answered the question further on that I've got as to whether you've seen a Beatle live. So I'll
Yeah.
take that one off my list. But can you remember any gigs as a fan that you went to when you were growing up that stick in your mind?
I think the first gig I went to sticks in my mind. I went and saw Reef. Remember that band?
Okay, yeah.
I went and saw Reef at the Academy in Bristol, and they got some great records.
I think Reef is that Lay Your Hands on Me
Yeah, that was the single, the sort of more
single,
pop
yeah.
single, but they had like riffs, and I was like, I must have been 9. I was small. I was really small when I was sort of stood at the back with my dad, and it sort of blew my head off because it was a 4-piece band, and I'd never really been to a rock gig at that point. And it's a small room there, and the PA was, and I was just like, this is just the best thing I've ever seen. And then other gigs. I mean, we went and watched a lot of music, a lot of local bands. There was a venue down in Wiltshire where I grew up that every Monday night they'd have bands on, like some of the best blues bands you'd ever hear. Hammond organ, guitar, bass, drums. There's a guy called Pete Gage. I think he sung a bit with Dr. Feelgood once Lee Brillo had died, and
Right.
he'd bring these proper cats down to this little pub in Corsham. And again, it would sort of, I'd go there every single Monday and watch the bands, no matter who was on. And then actually we'd end up playing in there with my band, with my friends from school, and we get 150 quid between us. And there was a bloke working behind the bar there, which was Mr. Max Goff, the bass player in Tom's band.
Ah, yeah.
So I think he was a school year above me. I didn't find that out until I did the audition with Tom, or that audition. I did that first play with Tom back in the day, because Goff's from the town along from me. So yeah, that's quite cool, isn't it? That's sort of full circle. And now I spend more
It
time with that
is.
band than I do with others. But yeah, I'd say the one that sticks in my head out of everything is that Reef gig. Although more recently, I did go and watch Oasis at Heaton Park, and that was incredible. Me, Goff, and Toby went along, and it was a real great day. And we had lucky enough to get good tickets through
Mm.
someone. It was just brilliant.
Yeah, we were thinking of the Oasis gig, but when we saw the prices and then the
Yeah,
queues trying to get tickets, it kind of put us off. But I have seen Oasis. I saw them at Glastonbury in 2005, I think it was. And they were at their peak from a commercial perspective, but not necessarily from a live perspective.
yeah,
So I didn't get the same experience from that that gig at Glastonbury that you probably got at Eaton Park recently, which sounded like they were really much back on form as a live outfit.
Yeah, yeah. I think Liam sounds as good as he's ever done. Probably because he takes better care of his voice, but it was quite like sort of blew me away, his voice. And it was sort of the Heaton Park. It was the first night back, you know. It was, and I got properly caught up in it all, you know. The other gig that sticks in my head is I saw Bowie at Wembley Arena, and that was incredible. My mum had got us the tickets. She'd bought them online and managed to get the very back tickets on the back wall of Wembley Arena. We were so far away that there was a little window that you could open, and it had been painted black, and we just managed to open it. But it was great because Wembley Arena is still relatively small, you know, and we were far away, but not far away enough that it would ruin the gig. It was still incredible, and you know, you're watching from a screen at that point. But the band are amazing. The Dandy Warhols supported, and they were really hot at that time because they had the Bohemian Like You tune, you know.
Yeah. I
Um,
remember I saw him on that tour as well, but it was Manchester Arena that
yeah,
I saw him at.
he was on form, wasn't he? He was
It
amazing, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, that was my first ever seeing him live in any capacity, and obviously you hear the stories around Ziggy Stardust, the
Yeah,
iconic Hammersmith Apollo, or the Hammersmith Odeon as it was back then, I think, in the
yeah.
70s. And then to see this guy on stage, you know, doing his stuff and going through his back catalogue, I think that set list was just
It was amazing,
unbelievable.
wasn't it? Because
Yeah,
he played a few of the new ones, but I mean, he started with Rebel Rebel, didn't he? That's what I remember. Because they were doing this thing with the house lights blinking on and off on the rhythm of that guitar riff, and I was just like, "This is unbelievable." And he walks out to the end of the catwalk thing, and he sort of stood there all night, didn't he, in that big long coat, and just,
he did.
you know, these songs were just like, and Heroes on that night, I think they played that last, was just amazing, amazing.
Yeah, you're bringing back memories for me now. Maybe I need to go on
Very
set. I need to go on Setlist FM and immerse myself in that
funny.
again.
I
And
could have it completely wrong, but maybe that was. I'm pretty sure he opened with Rebel Rebel.
so you've seen some iconic acts
Yeah,
over the years, which I think is absolutely incredible. But as a Leeds local, I
yeah.
want to drag you back to your time in the city at Music College. Is that where things sort of flipped from you being a music fan to being somebody who wants to make music?
Well, I think at that point was playing my guitar, you know, I didn't really have any other. I wasn't particularly. I was all right. I wasn't that academic, you know, I was kinda sporty, but I didn't really wanna go down that route, and, like, the guitar was all I knew how to do, so I was like, "Well, if I can do something which enables me to play it all the time and get a qualification from it, I'll go and do it," you know? And I would say that, like, the one thing that place did was it wasn't so much the time in they'll hate me saying this, but it wasn't so much the time in the college, but it was the time away from it that made me a better musician because I had all this time to practice, and
Yeah.
I'd still, to this day, probably haven't sat and played as much as I did for those 3 years, you know, because I was completely obsessed with the instrument and getting better, you know, and I was practicing and playing properly, you know, I was studying it. I was immersing myself with the material, and, like, it became a bit I had a proper routine because I had the time and I was, you know, I'd paid the money, so I was like, "I'm gonna try and come away from there as, um, a better guitar player," and I sort of worked up there, I did sort of functions, you know,
Mm.
which actually, like, although I'm out of that world now, it's like, it's kinda great if you're playing by day at home and then going out and playing a load of covers in the evening and earning a few bob, and then having a few beers when you're not doing it or when you are doing it with some friends, and, like, it's kind of just like it's kinda great. You know, think looking back, I realised how good I had it, you know. I think I did struggle in the college slightly, knowing why I was studying certain things, but I met a lot of great musicians, and I met Dougal up there, Dan McDougal, who's Liam Gallagher's drummer, who was Tom's original drummer, who you've probably seen.
Yeah.
So that was great, you know. And me and him, we're very good friends now. And without meeting Dougal, I wouldn't have probably got the Tom stuff.
Well, I've got some questions about that as well, but I
Yeah,
know that. So So just thinking of that time in Leeds and that 3 years you were there, you're throwing yourself into the culture of, going out and gigging and learning the guitar.
Yeah.
You've been back a number of times now on the other side as an artist, and you come in July. You're going to be playing headlining that amazing Millennium Square venue
Yeah, I'm looking
um,
forward to that.
on 4th of July. Do you come back to Leeds in that form and think, "Wow, these were my formative years"? Does it have a special place in your heart?
Yeah, it does, yeah. Like, the city itself, there's so many good memories there, and it's like, going back to anywhere that has that sort of emotional pull, like, I was with first and foremost, it was like you're with a load of friends and people you love when you're up there, and there's a handful of people that are still very dear to me that I was at university with. I went back recently, actually, and I did a talk at the Leeds College of Music, and that was nice to be asked because I never thought that I would be asked to do something like that, and I've never been so nervous for anything, and sort of talking to a bunch of students that did what I did, did the course I did, but it was kinda great. It was such a great afternoon, and, like, until that point, I don't really do lots of looking back, and I'm not that nostalgic with that kind of thing, but it was nice full circle to go back and talk.
Hmm.
I've never been so nervous playing guitar in front of lots of people that studying the guitar.
Well, was it different to being stood on stage? And I
Yeah,
mean,
totally, because, like, on stage when you're playing, it's like, it's a bit of the guitar's a bit of a force field then, like, I'm comfortable doing that. I'm obviously a bit nervous before big gigs, but once you're up there doing it, it's fine, 'cause it's but when you're, like, talking as a someone who has a sort of authority on the instrument, which I still don't think I have, I don't think anyone does until, like, it's just nerve-wracking because I know that the people that were watching that talk were doing what I did and literally studying guitar all day, and I'm lucky I don't particularly practice very much as much as I'd like to anymore, I still play, but they're there doing it. It's like that's the most time you're ever gonna spend looking just at your instrument, so it was nerve-wracking. There was a couple of the guitar teachers as well listening, but I didn't do too much playing, I did more nattering really, but
no, that's fair.
yeah.
I'm sure it was well received. Um,
Well, seemed it, but
it's, so, I mean, it's one thing to, I guess, hone your craft in college, but then you've got at some point you're crossing over into that industry. And you said you met Tom's drummer as being maybe you wouldn't have been pulled into Tom's circle if you hadn't have done that. So how do you end up in Tom's wrong crowd?
I met my wife when I was in Leeds, and she ran a sort of a function corporate band in London. She was doing an audition to get some northern-based musicians to cover all the northern bookings up there. So she put these auditions on, and then I met her there, got the gig, and then I was like, "Well, if she lives in London, I'm gonna go to London because I wanna be with her." So, London sort of wasn't on my radar until I'd met her, and then I moved down and quickly moved in with her. And then I was sort of, don't know what I was doing. She was definitely paying the rent for the first bit, and then I was sort of scratching around looking for gigs, and I was doing functions and playing at jam nights, and I had a few paid stuff. I was working in a pub, just doing what 20-year-old musicians do,
Yeah.
s- just trying to hold on, really. And then I think Dougal might have messaged me saying, "Oh, the guy I'm working for was looking for I think Tom was looking for like a keyboard." He didn't know what he wanted, a keyboard player or a guitarist or something. Anyway, I went down to a rehearsal and met Tom, and we got on really well that day. And I think I was in the band, or I don't think there was a sort of trial period or anything. It was just like, well, I think he just signed a deal, so he was about to do his first record, Long Way Down, and we did a few gigs. Showcasey kind of things, and I think I was in the studio with him pretty quickly after that, recording. I think the first proper gig I did was Jules Holland,
Wow.
like, you know, promo, yeah, and I didn't I was singing with Dougal and Max, and we were doing the BVs, and Tom was playing Another Love. I'm not very good at remembering when things had happened, but it was definitely in that first year, and it was like, well, I've never really sung before. and now I'm doing it on TV, and that was nerve-wracking, God. But,
Amazing.
yeah,
See,
and then we were at RAC doing a record, like, Long Way Down, and it was just like, I looking back, it was kinda nuts, but I'm like, I was just in it, and we were just sort of drinking heavily every day, and you definitely did it properly.
and suddenly you're out of that, you're a professional musician, a recording artist, and
Well,
you're going out gigging then, right?
yeah, sort of, I guess. I mean, and then yeah, and then Tom. I mean, with Tom, it's sort of from then to now. It's been busy the whole time. I guess there was a bit of a break with COVID, but like it's just never stopped, and it's incredible. And we're all so close, and we're all such good friends. And there's been like births and deaths and marriages and breakups and everything in between. It's just like it's wild. It's the reason why we're a good live act, I think, because it's like we've all grown up doing it together. Like we're all the same age, pretty much,
Yeah.
a year between us. So we're all 25, 26, touring the world together, and now we're 35 and 36 doing the same thing, but it looks very different now than it did back then.
It certainly does. Moving from, I guess, smaller stages to huge arenas now for the Wonderful Life tour. What's
Mhm.
that transition felt like for you?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's kind of like fundamentally we're still a live band. We don't use track, we don't. So that's hasn't changed. And even on these big stages, we're quite close in. I feel like there's a sort of sweet spot in between like the smaller rooms and the really big rooms where it's like really rocking, like a Apollo or like Leeds Academy or Manchester Apollo, up there. Those kind of rooms, I think we really suit those rooms. I think when it gets to the arenas, it's incredible. It's just so different because they're so vast. You don't get as much sound coming back at you. You're very far away from the crowd. There's video wall, there's lights. Everything's, there's a lot more. It's just a bigger thing. It becomes more of a show, in that sense.
Mm.
So it is different, but like I don't know. I think because we've stepped up and up and up and up. Like there wasn't a moment where we get on stage at arena and we think, "Oh God, this is different." For me, it's the same, pretty much. Still,
Even when you've been at Glastonbury and places like that, and you see these huge crowds in front of you, do
yeah.
you,
I mean, yeah, the crowd's the crowd though. You notice it when you walk on, and it's a big, vast, almost. It's less nerve wracking when it's a huge expanse of people. Because it is just so out in front of you. It's more nerve wracking playing a small quiet gig, or when there's. This is just me talking, not just playing with Tom, but playing with anyone, or you can see the whites of people's eyes and they're really listening to you. I feel like that's it's funny nerves. I don't nerves for me don't correlate with how big a room is or how big a crowd is.
all right.
It's sort of every situation's different. When people say there's no reason to be nervous because you've done this before on a bigger stage, it's like, well, no, it's like I think nerves is when you really care. So
Yeah.
like the big gigs, when me and Tom and the boys play together, there's like a force field around us. Like it's always going to be great for me because I like look at my mates, we're playing, we're rocking. It's like what can really go wrong? Touch wood. Like like we've done it a while, we've done it so long. It's like we're all on this sort of same energy. It's nervous like playing with a bunch of new musicians for me. That's when I get really nervous.
Is that because you don't have that ultimate trust that you currently have with the
Sort of trust, yeah.
players that you've grown up with?
Yeah, or just that same like we're sort of on the same path and are thinking, like it's like when I play with Tom and Goff and Toby, it's like I played so much music with those boys. It's like it's either like a knowing look or if someone's gonna do something out of the ordinary, we kind of know what it already is. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but if you're in a room or in a session with 4 new musicians you've never played with before,
It's unpredictable.
yeah, it's just like, oh well, should I be here? And do I sound good enough? Or that never goes, I think. But it's only because you care and you want to do the best job you possibly can. And that's not to say that I don't care when I play Tom's music. I care the most when I do that. But But it's like what it becomes easy then, I find, because we're so in tune with each other. And that's
Mm.
when you really get this really tight bands, where you get this sort of flow state and your brain's out of the picture and you're just sort of you're playing the music and it's all just a sort of stream of consciousness or unconsciousness, if you know what I mean.
Wow.
Um,
I was interested to talk to Jim McDermott, the Delamitri drummer. He was telling me about in-ear monitors. As a fan, when we're at the front and we're trying to pass our love to the band and to Tom, there's
yeah,
kind of this assumption that you guys feel waves of emotion and waves of love. And he was saying actually you can be quite detached
yeah.
because you're focusing on what's coming in your ears. How's your experience on stage?
It's different for me, right? Because, Tom's the artist, we're the band, and like we all perform, but like how do I put this? It's like I perform, but when I personally I'm quite preoccupied in the boys on stage, in the
Hmm.
band, you know. And I think if you do that first and foremost, the crowd will feel that.
Yeah.
But I totally get with the in-ear thing. Like it's quite unnatural to just have a kick drum going from a earpiece onto your into your eardrum, like it's wild and you could be in the biggest room ever, but that doesn't change. And it does, and your ears are closed off. So there is a detachment, but I'm forever pulling an ear out. So I can feel the noise of the crowd, 'cause sometimes you want that. And it's like, sometimes you want to hear the music in like with a bit of ambience around it, especially if you know a song well, like
Yeah.
if I'm playing pedal steel with Tom, quite often I'll pull an ear out because it's like you don't want to hear the steel next to the piano, right next to your ear. Sometimes you want to hear it from the amp behind you, where the air's moving a bit, um, or like just the sound of it in the room. Um, so yeah, it definitely does separate you. I know Tom took a while to go onto in ears as well, maybe because of that, but we definitely feel the energy from the crowd. I mean, or to put it this way, you really notice it when there isn't any. You have a really flat gig,
Yeah.
you think, "God, what was all that about?" But the energy can be different. We just did Zermatt with Tom, and it was such a good gig, but everyone was sat down. It was a real posh gig, and we played for like an hour and 40 and did loads of tunes. But because we knew people were listening with real intent, they might not have been shouting and screaming. You still get an energy from it.
Mm.
Like, no, they're listening. And that is better than people just talking. Like quite often at an afternoon slot in a big festival, it's quite hard to get over the sort of the drunk chitter chatter in the sun because, well, that's what we all do when we're at a festival, and it's a big
Mm.
field. But quite often that silence of a crowd that are really listening, that's a great energy. That
I always wonder what an artist thinks when it's a sat down crowd, and even when they get to the encore, they're not necessarily leaping to their feet. I wonder, how that feels from the other side.
Well, I know quite often if we do a seated gig, sometimes the set list is slightly tailored to it, but more often
Oh,
than not, it won't be, you know? And then eventually encores, everyone's on their feet anyway, because and even if they're not, if there's a few, Tom will say, "Get on your feet," and then we'll play 4 songs at the end, and there's like a release, and people are loving it, and it's like, but that's not to say that they weren't loving it when they were sat down. It's quite a lot to take in.
hmm,
There's 7 of us on stage now, and it's like there's a lot of lights, and like I know if I was sat in a seat watching us, it's just you just take it in and listen, and quite often it can be, yeah, it's just a different energy. I really like it. Maybe it's my age now, like mid-30s. I like playing those seated gigs. Like you
well,
feel like with the band when you're not having to like send it out. I think that's the trick. It's like sometimes you've got a big PA there, you've got mics on everything. It's way more powerful to play stuff a little bit with a bit more air around it than like smacking a snare drum as hard as you can because it doesn't get any louder. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
It chokes up.
yeah.
So like sometimes the bands that like really send it, the sound sort of I find if I've gone to watch a gig, the sound sort of chokes, and it's actually far more powerful just to play something a little, I don't know, little more controlled, and you still get that unless you're a sort of punk band and then you just want to see them. Yeah,
A mosh pit.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
no, I think it's a fair observation. I mean, I'm a lot older than you, and I like the thought of seated gigs for watching a set unfold, and as you say, get to that point in the set where it gets the encore and everybody gets on the feet, and
Yeah,
you've got that piece. I also like the fact that I don't have to queue all day to get down to the barrier at the front, which is
yeah,
always a bonus. But yeah, primarily I do still love the standing gigs. I just think
yeah.
you get a different, as a fan, you just get a different vibe and a different energy, and especially if you put a lot into it while you're waiting for the band to come up, you're making friends around you and everybody's
Oh, yeah,
excited.
like, those gigs on tour last year that, when they're stood like Ziggerdome or something like that, and they're stood on the floor, it's amazing, you definitely feel the like Glastonbury, I thought this year was like last year, I loved, 'cause there was a great energy in the rooms, in the tent, and the front row were but yeah, I mean, it's different days. Some days
Mm,
in a tour you'd like to do a sort of more listen-y. We did like at Massey Hall in Toronto, that's seated, I think. Neil Young and all that played there,
mm.
and that was a great gig, but I don't think anyone stood up. Maybe at the end, but it was just like iconic room, amazing acoustics, really cool set list, like a few of those quieter moments, quieter band tunes, in the middle, and you can really jam and play. That's when I love that. I love that. Like when the band are really going in, that's when it's the best job in the world.
You mentioned the pedal steel
Yeah,
there, which is obviously such a beautifully unique texture. And when I hear it played, I always think of our friend Mark Hart, who played in a band called Crowded House. He
yeah.
used it quite oftenly. Where did your love of that instrument come from? And you're quite a specialist in that now, aren't you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely get quite a bit of work recording with it. That wasn't the intention when I started playing. I was just obsessed with the sound. I was listening to a lot of records, like a lot of Graham Parsons, and it was sort of on my radar when I was growing up. But I'm sort of ashamed to say because I was from Wiltshire, not Tennessee. I didn't really know what it was, And then when I sort of did some digging just before COVID, I was like, I just want one of those, whatever it is, I want that. So I ended up meeting my mate Matt Park, who's a amazing pedal steel player and lived in Crouch End. He actually managed to hook me up with someone that had one for sale, so I went and bought an old thing, and then COVID hit, and I was like, "Well, I've got nothing to do, so I can just woodshed this now for." And then I've not really looked back. I'm obsessed with it. I play more steel at home than I do guitar now. It's what it is when you try and find a voice on an instrument later in your life, when you're an adult, it takes longer because when you're learning the guitar at 9 and then you play it all through your teenage years and you're listening to guitar music all the time, you develop your sound. Like no one else sounds like me, and it's just like you when you're learning to write, you get your handwriting, don't you, when you're a kid, and that's the way your handwriting looks as an adult, and it's all for but when you're trying to learn something and find a voice, 'cause it isn't just I don't sound the same on a steel as I do on a guitar, it's a different instrument, so I'm still trying to find that ability to be able to not to think on it and properly improvise on it, and I think that's whether that's reachable, I don't know, but I'm getting better at it. I
Mm.
absolutely love it. Thing with
How
the recording of it, you don't have to do too much on it. When you record, it's like you say, it's this sort of other texture and it records really well, so less is more, I find with that because 'cause I'm
All right.
very guilty of overplaying on it, I think, but that's something I'm trying to learn not to do, but
How do you decide when you're writing or working on a song that that is something that you want to use? Is there a certain type of song that lends itself to that instrument?
that's a good question. I mean, I don't think there's ever a decision until you've tried something, you're like, "Well, I quite like that." Like, on my own music and the songs I've put out, I put the steel on there because it makes me happy to play it and I enjoy the sound of it, so I put it on the songs and I feel it portrays a certain emotion in conjunction with the lyric or whatever, but I wouldn't just put it on there for the sake of it, but I would always just have a sort of tinkle on it and think, "Oh, that sounds good there." But I quickly know if it doesn't work. But,
Mm,
like, in terms of, like, other people asking me to play on their records or on the steel, it sort of fits in that sort of higher register. You can make it sound quite small, like, as in just it lends itself to nice compression and, like, it's got this certain frequency that sits above everything, and like it can kind of make things sound really wide, and especially with reverb and things and sort of slow singer-songwriter stuff, it's great because it can sort of weave in between a vocal or a guitar line or a piano, or that's how sort of use it quite a lot. But other people want burning, picked, you know, country solos at a million miles an hour, and that ain't my bag, but I'm getting better
Right.
at it. There's plenty of guys in America that can do that.
I just want to touch on your songwriting as well, because
Yeah,
we'll go on to your own songs a little bit later. But
yeah,
working with Tom, you've got writing credits, most notably Black Friday, which was nominated for the Ivor Novello. How does that songwriting process work, and how did it feel to be part of the writing team that was recognised for that song?
um, it was a surprise when it came out and did quite well, and it's still doing quite well. I mean, I'm lucky in that sense because the writing of the song, like, as it always is with Tom, was quite straightforward. It's just there's never any pressure, you know, with when I'm writing with Tom because he's my mate, and it's like quite often because I co-write with a lot of people, it's like there is a pressure to get something, you know, as much as you say there isn't. But with Tom, there generally isn't because we play so much music together. And it's like, should we write a tune? And if nothing happens, should we go to the pub? You know, that's not to say we don't work hard when we know we've got a good idea. But I think that's where songwriting really works is when you just relax and you're with a friend. And I think quite often or not, I'm writing with new people and I don't know them that well. Occasionally I get an absolute bit of gold, you know, but quite often it's hard because you have to, you're sort of, you don't know them personally. And I think to write a good song, it really helps to know someone personally, and to be, you know, best mates with them is like even easier, I think, because
Yeah.
you quickly say, this is rubbish or this is good, let's keep digging, or, you know, and I think with that song, I just went over to his studio and the initial idea sort of came between us, and I think it was Black Friday. I think it was his birthday, Tom's birthday. And I think I just came over to hang out and then we just wrote the song. I think we got the lyric or this first bit of the lyric and the chords, and then we knew there was gonna be this big build up thing. And then Tom's great 'cause like it's never finished, you know? The song's never finished with Tom, and when you're writing it, it's like he'll chip away at it and chip away at it, and he'll put it down and pick it back up, and I think that's where a lot of the refinement in the song came, um, with that one. But the whole the whole concept of it, that came quite easy, you know? And it
Mm.
was like, "Well, that's a good thing." And then, you know, suddenly you're recording it and it's a thing, and then it goes out and then it does pretty well. I mean, it's sort of like 'cause it sort of changed my life, that song, you know, which is mad. Um,
What
it's only been out a couple of years, but, you know, I've sort of I hadn't had a I'd had cuts, and I had cuts with Tom at that point. We wrote another song called Just Another Thing We Don't Talk About,
Yeah,
um, which I'm super proud of that song.
it's a
Um,
beautiful song.
yeah, and, that was quite personal to both of us. We were both going through something, and it's like, you know, and it's a song about s fathers and sons and you know, not talking about things that need to be talked about, and just like the title says, it's just like, you know, that again came quite easy, that idea, you know, and I remember being super proud of that one. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it's sort of like those songs that I've written with him, and the fact that Black Friday's done well, I think it's a symptom of the fact that we've played so much music together, you know, and you can feel it in the song itself. It's like, I don't think you write a song like that with a stranger.
No,
You know, I think it's like it's part
there's
of
a
mates and having that history and playing a lot and having played on loads of music, and
but
yeah.
there's also vulnerability in them,
Well, yeah,
that maybe if you're playing with a stranger, you probably wouldn't open up as much, perhaps?
no, no, and I think you're right. It's funny, you know, like when you're writing with a mate, or you know, Tom's so successful. It's like when I'm writing with him, it's like you can be it's so open, you know, and like you can be completely yourself, and you can, and I feel like he can be the same with me. It's like it takes all the stress away of like, oh, you can make a suggestion and it can get battered away as rubbish, and you could just move on and not. Or you can make a suggestion and it's like, "Hey, let's dig deeper," you know? There's no ego or pretense involved, and I think I do a lot of co-writing, you know, predominantly when I'm not on the road, I'm writing with people, and it can be quite stressful, you know? Digging down with someone you've just met. It's pretty wild, the co-writing sort of thing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Um, you know, it's not to say I don't enjoy it. Sometimes it's the best thing ever, but other times it can be really like, "Oh god," you know, "This is tough."
Um,
And more so on the artist side, you know, like, not you know, it must be difficult for an artist to have to come in with someone they don't know as well, and then suddenly but I don't know.
you mentioned that Black Friday changed your life, and I've got a question specifically from Ollie for you. He says, obviously, over the years, as Tom's grown more successful, and then Black Friday explodes everywhere, how have you handled that sort of being in the spotlight a little bit more?
I mean, first, I don't feel like I'm in the spotlight much more than I was, you know, whether I was in the spotlight at all, you know? I feel like it's nice to have recognition, and I guess it's opened a few more doors in terms of who I'm working with, but maybe I don't know. It's just like when I said it changed my life, it's just, you know, it's put me and I tell you what it has made me feel, and it's given me a lot more confidence in terms of my writing. Because until you get a cut that does something, it's hard to feel that you're doing a good job. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Mm.
I wouldn't say it's validation because I don't do it for that, but it's like, okay, maybe I can do this. You know, that feeling. I don't know. I mean, it's only changed my life in the sense that I hadn't had a commercially successful song, and now I do. You know, wouldn't say I'm more people don't know me from Adam, you know, I'm still a guitar player and I'm still a session guy in that sense, but I think quite often the music industry is about spinning lots of plates at once and, you know, as long as you're doing it from the right place and you're doing it like you mean it.
I think you're quite a humble and self-effacing guy, Max, from the conversation we've had. And we might not look for validation in our lives, but it's nice when it comes. And you may not be, you know, the megastar or well known, but within the Tom Odell family, you know, you are incredibly appreciated and incredibly loved. So, you
Well,
know,
thank you. Thank you.
we're going to have to talk about this album that you've brought in. You've chosen Abbey Road by the Beatles. It doesn't need an introduction, really. They were already the biggest thing on the planet
This
when
is
this
probably the
album.
biggest album ever. Sorry.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Um,
so
obviously, um, you've mentioned during the course of this chat that Beatles were already in your life as you were growing up and a big influence from your dad.
right.
Is that the starting point? Is that where you heard the album for the first time?
Yeah, and that was predominantly why I picked it. I lost my dad in December.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, like, it was a long thing that went on and on. I was actually out on tour with Tom and, been out all year and it had been ongoing and it was, you know, it was quite tough last year. But when you messaged me about picking an album, I sort of went over and over on what to pick and dig deep and deep and deep. And then I thought, well, it would probably be right to pick one that he used to play me and that had because it's as about as important as an album is to me, just because of my memories listening to it with him, you know? And then there's other songs on there that mean a lot to me for other reasons, but, you know, that was the reason why I picked it because it was sort of fresh in my mind, you know, and I've been listening to it a lot. It's weird when someone dies because you sort of avoid listening to things or reading things or doing things that might bring up emotion, you know?
Hmm.
But then it sort of passes by and you're like, "Oh, actually, you sort of revel in it." You know, you revel in the albums and the books and the films and the you know, you're like, "Oh, this is good because it makes me feel closer to him and closer to when I was a kid." You know, because the sort of mortality's in your mind and it makes you look back a lot more, you know? But it took
Hmm.
me a few months to get there.
I'm sure it did, and I'm sorry to hear that,
That's all
Max.
right. No, no, it's always
Um, but you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is that self-preservation, I think we call it, don't we? When we try and avoid the memories and we try and avoid the nostalgia But I
Yeah.
think music, out of all mediums, is probably the most healing. And whenever I've been in a situation, I lost my dad too.
Yeah.
So it's, listening to music for me has always been a part of the healing process.
Yeah.
So, I hope you find some comfort in that yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of all you've got really, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day is like the things you did together or the music you shared or, you know, and like music's such a it's a credible like medium in terms of memory. Like more so than anything, I think. Like you can hear a song, remember where you were and what you're doing and the conversations you had about it, you know. And I find it I'm not very good at remembering things, you know, and it's like I find as think that or smell, you know, like I was walking down the street the other day, the road the other day, and there was a lady that walked past with my grandma's perfume on. It wasn't her perfume; it was the same brand, not her exact. But do you know what I mean? And it just harks you back straight away. You're like, I remember walking down the road with
Yeah.
her in Clevedon. It's like, and the same thing with music. It's just it takes you there. It's kind of crazy.
It is, and for somebody, I'm like yourself. I'm not exactly great when it comes to memories and remembering things.
Mm.
But you put a track on that I was growing up when I was 16, and I heard on the radio. I could even now recite every lyric, every word,
Yeah. Well.
and I know even the live variations to the bands that I've gone to see.
Yeah.
It's so special.
Yeah.
And it's really why we do Friday Vinyl Club, really, to try and tap into those music memories, and that nostalgic feeling. And
Yeah.
so for this particular album, I was going to ask you whether now you look at it through two eyes. I mean, do you look at it still as that kid growing up listening to the tracks with your dad, but do you also listen to it as a musician?
Well, I think you're right in the sense of like there's certain tracks that I can remember where I was with dad or, you know, and then I listened to a lot of it going, uh, I went back a lot in university and listened to a lot of the middle of it. And it's weird, you know, and then I did it again this morning in the gym, which is like on a good pair of headphones. It was like, you think you know every single note and sound of an album. And so until you listen to this one, I find it's like you still discover things. It's wild, whether it's a mixed thing or an instrument. And I definitely wasn't listening that way when I was a kid. You know, I was just like, I think it was a more of a general like just sort of being astounded by it and the sound of it, and not really understanding it. You know, like even some of the lyrics. I mean, even the way the record starts or come together is wild because that doesn't really sound like the Beatles. You know, it's a sort of groovy there isn't another song in the world that sounds like it, that one, with the drums and the fact that the bass pumps away, it's just like and then, yeah, I mean, track by track, it's just ridiculous. It's all quite different as well. I think it's like you can tell it's because it was the last one, wasn't it? The
It's the
last
last one
chord
they recorded in the studio, wasn't it?
and you could sort of tell that they're just on the top of their musical ability, I think. But the playing's amazing, the songwriting's amazing. It's just enough there's just enough weird for me in it, you know. I think with Sergeant Pepper's, some of that's so out there, you know, and also the White Album. I think this is a bit more like it's got more of a running theme. Even though the songs are very different, I love the way that you know, most of them go into each other and there's things revisited in certain songs, themes that run throughout it, you know. I just think it's like there's not a bad weirdly enough, the only song I'm not keen on is Octopus's Garden. I don't know why. I think maybe we sang it at primary school and it did my head in. I mean, even Old Darling's a bit of a sort of pastiche rip-off thing, but they sort of did it knowingly, you know? It's like there's a bit of a glint in their eye, you know, and a bit of a wink. Do you know what I mean with that one?
Mm.
But,
It's interesting that just before that comes Maxwell's Silver Hammer, which,
yeah,
you start off this album with Come Together, and then you've got that beautiful something, and then you get Maxwell Silver Hammer, which seems a little bit
again, yeah.
dark,
Yeah, it's very
shall we
dark.
say.
Yeah, and it's sort of that song I remember dad playing on a nylon string guitar because we used to have this Beatles songbook called the Beatles Complete, which and all the pages were torn. In fact, I've just rebought it and it was weird. because we lost the version, you know, the one that we had. It was terrible, really, and some of the artwork is insane in it, and it's every Beatles song in alphabetical order with a on one sh you know, each page is one song with the lead sheet and the chords. It's incredible. It's worth just buying for the artwork, and I just rebought it, and I got it through and just flicking through that, I sort of knew every single picture in it, 'cause there's interspersed photographs and paintings, incredible.
I was going to ask you, you know, if we did a track deep dive, which maybe 3 tracks would jump out at you as being your favorite
Well,
cuts on the album?
yeah, so there's a few there's quite a few songs on here that have been sort of quite prominent in really big times in my life. Maxwell Silverhammer's one of them, 'cause that was dad used to sing that to me when I was very small, and then the same reasons, Golden Slumbers, which was just is I think is probably my favourite song ever,
Mm.
for that reason. I can't listen to that too much anymore because it's just I don't know why. I think that one it makes me think about being small, being a kid, being sung to, my own kids, the fact that it's a bit of a lullaby, and then goes into carry that weight, the sentiment behind the lyric is just like, yeah, it's so good, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then something was I played at my wedding in a band with all my mates, and it was probably the only song that I learnt the guitar solo so vigorously, and tried to get it exactly right. I don't know why. I've never done that. I mean, like, I think because I wanted to do it justice, and I was a bit pissed, and I just got married, and it was just such a nice thing, you know, to go and play that with, I think, mate, I don't know who was drumming. I think Goff was definitely on bass. My friend Ike was singing, and it was a real great thing, that was. Um, I mean, they've all got Here Comes the Sun as well. They've all got just vivid memories of, you know, times gone
Mm.
past, really. Um,
One of the songs that I wanted to mention, and again, asking you from a player perspective,
mm,
was "I Want You, She's So Heavy."
oh, wild.
Um, it's just relentless. It's
Yeah,
just, you know, it's like this hypnotic beast that
the
has
bass
got that
line.
legendary jarring white
Yeah,
noise and silence at the end. But from a, you know, when I think about what you did with Black Friday and that
yeah.
crescendo at the end, I mean, what are your thoughts as a songwriter on that particular track and a guitarist?
Well, it's sort of wild that because it's so out of anything that had been heard before. You know, the way that arpeggio is, and then the bass line that sort of descends, and it's sort of I don't know, it's modal, is it modal? I don't know. It's so dark, and it's that first chord, I don't know, that minor chord with the bass line, it's just like and it is so cyclical, it just goes round and round and round and round, whilst getting heavier and heavier, and it's got I don't know what that noise is. Is it like a jet plane or something at the end, or I don't know.
Max, you are the expert here. You-
Well, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that noise is. Yeah, it's wild. I love it. I think it's sort of like, I don't know, early forms of like heavy metal or something. I don't know.
Mm.
It's kind of you could sort of hear Black Sabbath or something in that, you know? Do you know what I mean? With the
Yeah, I do.
yeah, I mean, also on another note is the bass playing throughout the album is insane. Paul McCartney just sort of plays the bass in a way that I don't think anyone else will. It's sort of kind of wild, you know?
Mm.
Um, "Old Darling" is a funny track because we played a cover of that with the record store day I think we did. We did a recording of it with Tom. That was a great day. Then we used to play it at gigs quite a lot, back in the day, and I remember being in LA and walking into a shop, very expensive clothes shop for some reason. I didn't buy anything, but, that was being played of us murdering a Beatles song, but it's good.
I'll look that. I don't think I've heard that cover, but I will find it and I'll put it up on the Instagram. This album's traveled with you a lot of years. Are
Yeah.
there any tracks that have? I know you've mentioned a couple that are now deeply resonating with your dad. So I don't mean from that perspective, but are there any tracks that have changed meaning for you over the years?
Uh, that's a good question. Not sure about that one, Amy. It's quite a tough question. I mean, I guess, like, there's certain songs that I've played in bands a lot, like Come Together. I've got more of a sort of musical understanding of that song and the ways you can change it up a bit, play it
Mm.
different. But, no, I guess I listened to, like, Polythene Pan was quite a big one at uni. My mate Matt Dacey, who's a drummer who's up in Sheffield, we live together. He's a huge Beatles fan, so this record was on the whole time. So I've got lots of nice memories. Me, Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pan. She Came in Through the Bathroom Window is such a good song. Those three are incredible, that little bit in the middle. So, like, lyrical and sort of weird stories. I love that line, and she came in through the bathroom window, on the banks of her own lagoon. I absolutely love that. Protected by the silver spoon. So good.
So it sounds like this is really rooted in nostalgia and memories for you. As much as you look at it as a musician and admire it, every song here has got some kind of key memory for you.
Yeah, I'd say that. Um, Also, I like, just as a guitar player, I think Harrison came up with parts that just supported a melody, or whilst living in their own thing, doing their it was never just chords. It
Hmm.
was never just meat and potatoes. There was always something interesting, whether it would be tonally or, like, a lot of it's really angular. Like, even, I mean, the guitar solo in Something is like, I mean, that is just that whole song from start to finish, and the way it modulates and the lyric, and, like, it's got such a, only George could have written that, I think. It's got such a sort of innocence about it. 'Cause they say, don't they, that he wrote the best Beatles song.
If you'd met a music fan who was brand new to the Beatles, considering their legendary back catalogue, is this the first place you'd point somebody to as a recommendation, or where, if not, where else in their back catalogue would you point them to?
I mean, I think this was the first one I did, because my dad would play it a lot
Yeah.
when I went back. Um, but it depends, isn't it? Because every album, there's such a different, it's such a I mean, this is a totally different band now, in the space of 9 or 10 years or whatever they were together. It's like, I mean, if you listen to Rubber Soul is Wild, it's still I'd say this, or Revolver maybe, because it's like there's still songs there, but it's still quite out there. But it's a far cry from the sort of rock and roll skiffle band they were, like Beatles for Sale or Please Please Me or whatever. It's like totally different world, isn't it?
How amazing they were to be able to evolve themselves from when they started out to when they finished,
Yeah,
and then beyond.
and just, like, the amount of growing up they did in such a short amount of time, as people, like, have you seen Get Back?
Yes, we did. Was it "Get Back" the song that Paul McCartney just pulled out of nowhere?
Yeah, it all just comes together in front of your eyes on that documentary. I mean, that's just, it's like, another realm, that is. The way that they're just musical magic is just happening. I know it's a long film, but I mean, the stuff that they're turning over, and the songs are just banging out like they're nothing. I love that bit when, he comes in early one morning, he's sat there in his fur coat at the piano, and he's playing Long and Winding Road, and he's like, "This one came to me last night," or whatever. "I wrote this last night when I got home." Like,
I take it that's not how it works for you and Tom. Just
no, no,
I.
he just turns up at sound check and plays a brand new song, and then we have to learn it. I guess it's kind of the same, but and then Ringo's just on the drums looking hungover and smoking. It's just like they had no idea what they were witnessing, and
No.
like, but you're right. Just the amount of sort of, I mean, look, people talk about the Beatles constantly because they did so much in such a short amount of time, and they never stood still. They never like they never went back and did the same thing. Every song was different. It always seemed to be evolving, and then it finished. And I think it finished, it's kind of perfect, wasn't it? Really, like,
Yeah, they had an amazing knack for that,
yeah,
and they were genius. I mean, looking back and what I'm learning now in my older years, I it's mind blowing what they came up with.
yeah,
We can't talk about this album without talking about the artwork. That iconic four of them wandering across the zebra crossing to Abbey Road
yeah.
Studios, which I
I had
guess you've walked over, right?
walked over, driven over. Yeah, Still, you still
Yeah.
drive up that road and you're like, "There it is," you know, 'cause it's I used to have this, and like most people, I had it on a poster on my wall. It's like, sort of look up and which one looks the coolest, and it does change, you know. I still think George looks the best at the back.
So
Yeah.
when you walk across that zebra crossing, just give us a glimpse of what it's like to walk then into Abbey Road Studios. I understand there's 2 studios in there. Is there one orchestral and one where the Beatles recorded most of their catalogue?
Yeah, and then there's also 3 and 4, I think. So there's
Oh,
one up.
okay.
So I've recorded I've done 3 or 4 days or sessions in number 3. I mean, it's amazing. It's such a treat when you get to work there, and, I've not actually recorded in the Beatles one.
Do you feel the weight of history when you're in there? Do they have, like, big photos up of all the people that have recorded and
Yeah.
things like that?
I mean, it's like a museum, you know, everything's an artifact, like, and there's sort of loads of tape machines and stuff lying around in the corridors, and it's kinda like, if you were to ask, someone would tell you that some of the most extraordinary music was recorded on that thing you're looking at, or, you know, or it's it's wild. That I'm not sure you feel the weight of history, you just feel extremely lucky to be there, and they do it so properly, like, people are so nice when you turn up, you sign yourself in, and usually if you're doing something at Abbey Road, it's quite a big thing, you know, or and there's a great cafe downstairs, and people are really friendly, and you can get a beer and whatever, and I mean, it's mad, yeah, it's wild. It's when you've got it in your calendar that you're gonna go and work there, it's something that's you look forward to, you know, it's always a great day, but I think we did
Mm,
the strings for Long Way Down. I think Tom's done a lot of strings there, but we did Long Way Down, they did the strings, and I went along and we sort of watched them and record it all. It was amazing, you know.
mm.
Yeah, it's a great place to work.
All right, perfect. Thanks for that. Now, Max, we always end the podcast with a segment called Friday Spin,
Yeah,
where we would ask for a recommendation to pass to the listeners, something old, new, or rediscovered.
yeah,
But I want to hijack this section completely and focus on your solo work, if that's okay.
yeah, sure.
You've been quietly dropping some wonderful solo tracks since I think 2023. But last
Yeah.
year, I think your Violet EP landed. Firstly, I guess, what was the thought process behind going out under your own name and dropping some music like that? Was it a time in your life where you felt this is the right time to put something out?
Yeah, I spend so much time writing with other people, and there's always an itch to just get your head down on your own and do it, you know? But I had these songs sort of knocking around, and I thought, "Why not put them together?" I mean, I have grand plans of doing an album at some point, but I do find working on my own predominantly quite difficult. So I thought if I just put these songs out and work hard on them, and my mate Toby, who's Tom's drummer, helped me sort of no end doing them. You know, he's brilliant and he's drummed on a lot of them and mixed them. And I brought Rich in, the violin player, to play some strings on it. But yeah, I don't know. I've always got that itch to do my own stuff. So we live in this world now where you can just do it and put it out and
Mm.
carry on and do more. You know, so it's nice to be able to just put my own stuff out. But
It,
yeah, the fun bit's definitely the making of it and the writing of it. I'm
yeah.
not so good at the self promotion.
What's the, yeah, I was wondering what the difference is between being part of an ensemble that's creating music and then taking that lead role, and being the primary singer-songwriter. How does it feel different from, say you work with Tom and then you're going in and you're the main guy trying to put this together and then put it out there?
Well, it's just quite alien to me to be the sort of the name doing it and doing it on my own, you know. But the more you do it, the more music you put out under your own name, you're like, "Oh, do you know what? I actually do enjoy it," because you don't have to answer to anyone. You can write the songs, record them in the way you wanna record them and put them out. There's no label involved. No one really listens to it. So it's just like it's just purely just for my enjoyment of making the music and writing the songs from the right place and moving on, you know?
Mm,
I mean, streaming's amazing for that you can just do it and and it's great because they're then catalogue of songs that you leave behind, and that's a lot more than a lot of people do, you know? You've got them there to listen to, and my kids can listen to them, and
Bit of a legacy.
little bit, yeah, it's just like I think if you're gonna be a co-writer and you're gonna write a lot of music, you should have some stuff out there on that you've done on your own, I think, you know, and that's not the main motivating factor, but I think it's just an itch, you know, and you scratch it and put the music out and
Mm,
there's more, you know, I'm always writing songs, so there'll be more. I just need to, get my head down, I think.
mm. Personally, I'm quietly obsessed with open air. I
Oh,
think that
nice.
it's just an absolutely hypnotic song. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And when I do my evening walk, I've been listening religiously to this EP and just trying to get inside the songs. What was the background of that? How did that come together?
That one came from that drum groove and the guitar. It was recorded together in Toby's house in Leamington, and me and Toby have played so much together that that was one 'cause I had the chord sequence and the melody and the lyric in the chorus, and I just said, "Let's just put this down, and I'll think about the lyric up the you know, the lyric after," and it sort of all came together in an afternoon, and
Wow.
the main thing was that guitar and the drums, the acoustic and the drums, and then we just had a great feel about it. It was sort of going for that sort of Bill Withersy vibe, you know, with
Mm,
the drums not played too hard and the acoustic just grooving on the chords, and the chords are quite interesting. And then we put the lyric came quite quickly, and I like the fact that the whole song was breathing and it had life behind it, and it felt like you were up, you know, in open air, and I like that feeling of it. So that's what I tried to make come across in the lyric. And then we did this mad reverse guitar in the outro bit, and then Toby did this great mix. It's all really easy with Toby, you know, because I think we've made so much music together. Again, it's that thing.
mm.
Gets it, and he mixes it really well, and it's nice to have someone that you could hand it off the music to, and it with fresh ears reapproaches it and makes it sound better because you can get so in your own head with it. If you're doing it all and mixing it all, mastering it, and by the end of it, you just want it done, you know. So
Mm,
I'm I love making music with Toby, and he's a really important part of the stuff that I do. So
fantastic.
long may it continue.
I was just going to say, long may that continue.
Yeah.
The other song that jumped out at me was obviously the title track of the EP, Violet. That is a
Yeah.
stunning, absolutely stunning song. Where did that come from?
Yeah, that was a sort of lyric about a panic attack on a plane. I had this sort of story in my head and sort of went into that and that feeling of being, the world getting all too much and then someone coming out and being there for you that knows you well and tells you to calm down, take a step back, stop catastrophizing, all of that. That's what that song's about. Yeah, I like that one. It came quite quickly, and then I think if you with all of them, I just the first initial idea, I just went with those ideas, got Toby involved, and got it done quite quickly, and I think that's good because 'cause it's got that sort of
Immediacy.
yeah, and then you can feel it sounds like I'm discovering it a little bit, which I think is cool.
Mm,
And the strings are amazing on that. I was so happy with that, with Rich Jones, who's Tom's violin player, just came in and just worked magic. I didn't he just hit record and he just did that. It's amazing, really.
mm. Worst Kept Secret is also an absolutely fantastic song. That's got the pedal steel on, right?
Yeah, I like that one's done on a alternate tune guitar, sort of going for that elbow kind of vibe with that, but yeah.
Do
Good, I've never
you
spoken about these songs as much as I am now.
really?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, you know, I just do it and put it out, so yeah, it's nice.
I think it's a beautiful set of songs, and it complements the ones that you already had out there before. I think "Hard Time Believing" was one of the previous songs that I'd heard that I really caught on to. Um,
Yeah, I like
so
that one, that's the one I'm most proud of, I think.
do you play these in the live arena anywhere, or are you doing these like I know you said earlier you're doing little pub gigs and things when you're not working with Tom, but
Yeah.
do these get a life outside the digital world?
Yeah, they do, last year I did a few gigs here and there, and I enjoyed it. I mean, that in itself is a totally different feeling, you know, 'cause, playing your own songs, 'cause I don't do that very often, you know, and I did the Green Note in Camden a couple of nights, which is a cool little folk club. Me and Johnny Lloyd did a gig, and I played them there, and I've never been so nervous. Again, there's only 40 people in the room, but it's Max played double bass, and that was fun. Kerry, my wife, sung a few harmonies. I love doing that, but very nerve-wracking. Like, Christ, I don't know, because I feel like you have to perform them, and then also they're laid so bare, the songs, and it's like, I think when you're recording them and you can make them sound the way you want to sound, but when you've just got a guitar, but people seem to enjoy it, and I enjoyed it, so that was fun. So
And I guess it goes back to what you said earlier about smaller rooms. If you play it to 40 people, you can see the whites of their eyes as well when you're performing. So that
yeah,
must make you feel a bit alive.
yeah, it does. I mean, it's mad how nervous I felt for that first, because it's something I don't do very often, is go and play my original songs, and my lyrics. That it's just quite I just find you're quite bare there. It's just like it's. But then that's where it's great, is when you feel that little buzz and you get out your comfort zone for a bit. I think is what is the main thing. It's important to do. I sort of force myself to do it. I want to do more. So.
Max, thank you so much for bringing your story, your songs, and Abbey Road to Friday Vinyl Club. Did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it. Great fun, and thanks so much for having me. Oh, it's nice to sit and chat, isn't it? That's the thing. Don't get to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I genuinely appreciate it. It's always amazing to hear how music flows through our lives, especially from someone who is both a music lover and a music maker. Thank you for all the music you've given us so far, Max, and we can't wait to see you on stage at Millennium Square this July. To our listeners, you can find Max solo tracks along with other favourite cuts from Abbey Road on our companion Spotify playlist. I'll put some of Max's tracks up on our Instagram as well, at JamieB1973. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave us a rating. It makes a massive difference in how people can find a small family podcast without sponsor or ads. Until next time, keep your records spinning and your stories alive. Thanks, Max. Really appreciate that.
Cheers, Jamie.